and how's everybody's morning going so far? I'd like to start off with by asking how many of you would consider using an online website to find your next your next relationship? I chose the idea of online dating because of the documentary Game Over. After watching the documentary, I did quite a bit of research on the subject matter involving online dating. The information sources that I found and will be using in my speech are from the Pew Research Center and Time Magazine's website. I also have some first and second-hand experience with online dating myself, and with all this coming together, I'll be talking about how online dating is starting to become the norm in finding the long-term relationships. Now, over the course of the speech, I'll be presenting some statistics for online dating. I will also be going over some different communication methods for online dating, and then also sharing some of my first and second-hand experiences with online dating. To give you an idea of how online dating has started to become the norm, let's go ahead and take a look at some of the statistics about online dating. So back in 2006, when online dating started, it was an up-and-coming avenue for you to be able to find your special someone. The Pew Research Center did a study and found that 3 out of 4 Americans at the time had tried online dating. In fact, most of us may probably already know somebody that has tried it or has thought about trying it. Now, to show how it's starting to take commonplace, in that same research study that Pew Research Group did, they found that 3% of online users at the time were either married or committed in a long-term relationship, and they met online. Now, this is greatly smaller than just an article that was put out a few months ago here by Time Magazine that said almost a third of marriages today are now from a result of somebody meeting another person online. So this brings me to my next point regarding the vast array of communication methods for using online dating. Most of us have probably seen commercials on TV or on the radio from sites such as Match.com or eHarmony. Social networking sites also have their own versions of dating capability, which allows their members to be able to meet and start relationships with those members. These two areas of the internet is where the norm was geared to go, but since smartphones have started becoming more popular, these different dating sites have transitioned to a application base to make it easier format for us to be able to view and use via our smartphone or mobile devices. For instance, on Google Apps alone, I found almost 100 plus different apps just catering to online dating. Now that we have all these choices, what sites or apps do we actually end up using? To make the choice easier between the different online dating companies, Time Magazine suggests for us not to give in to the sales hype of these different online websites. We also want to look at making sure that when we are actually using the different sources, especially if we're in those mainstream websites, we want to make sure that we're keeping browsing time at a minimum because that'll reduce the overload on the brain. Otherwise, you're just looking at content and you're just seeing the content but not actually looking at it. Now let's talk about some of my first and second-hand experience with online dating. So as you guys may have gathered, I've had some experience with online dating. Some of what I found was the interaction is definitely quite a bit different, especially since you're using a digital canvas versus meeting a person face-to-face. This is largely due to the fact that when you're meeting somebody face-to-face, you can hear inflections, you kind of know what's going on with the conversation versus black and white. You don't hear those inflections, and you don't necessarily know how the person is talking. We also have an image that we look at, which starts the impression process. So, whether they're smiling or if they're frowning. And I don't know about you, but I'd rather have a conversation with somebody that smiles versus snarls. So Time Magazine, in this aspect, suggests to better make an impression of a person, because of the great difference that takes place. They suggest to go ahead and try to meet that person as soon as possible. This will help reduce that impression that we're already starting to get of the person via digital, so that way we don't have any unrealistic expectations. Now, my second experience comes from my divorced parents, both of which have used online dating sites, and my dad actually got married to his current spouse via online dating. Through my dad's experience, he found that a person that had a frowning picture were more than likely to not be very upbeat, or they're very pessimistic. My dad also noticed that, my dad also used multiple sites and found that most of the users were on the same sites and were spread across. And one site would match him, but the other site wouldn't. He also found that the site Match.com would just throw tons of choices his direction with no real matching system behind it. Now, my dad did exactly what Time Magazine suggested and would meet up with the individual as soon as he could, so that way he could get that in-person impression. Now, this occurred long before Time Magazine put out this article. This was a couple months ago. Now, in conclusion, I've discussed some of the statistics showing the increase in marriage through online dating over the course of 7 years. You also heard some different options available to you and some pointers on how to choose the right venue, along with some of my first and second-hand experiences. Now that online dating is becoming the norm, with this information I provided you, would you consider using online dating? And do you think that it has made dating easier or harder?